Hello, yes, it's me, Chris Carl, and this is episode 57 of the Lockdown Diaries, a diary about being in lockdown here in Spain. I'm near Marbella on the Costa del Sol. We are on day 57, another 2 weeks to go at least, and then they will start lessening the restrictions, we are told. Now, I haven't done this podcast in a couple of weeks, so I've probably forgotten what to do, and there are some of you that will suggest that I never really knew what I was doing, and I say to those people, you get no prizes for spotting the obvious. So what's been going on? Well, today, terrible wind. You might be able to hear it on the back of this recording, and I'm talking about the weather, of course, outside. It is very windy. We've had a few very warm days, 25, 26 degrees. It is expected to go up from there. So a lot of people desperate to get out. We are allowed out for a bit of exercise between 6 in the morning and 10 in the morning. A little bit early for me, and 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night, although it does get dark at 9:30. But that's just about the only difference, really, since the last time I reported on this 17 days ago. So what's the purpose of this? Well, I don't know. It gives me an excuse to talk to myself and just a chance to share some laughs, some tips, some binge-watching recommendations for you. So let us begin. On this day, the 10th of May, for today is Sunday the 10th of May 2020, back in the year 1503, on the 10th of May, Christopher Columbus discovered the Cayman Islands. With all due respect, I do kind of dispute that a little bit, or at least the wording of it, because I think the people who lived on the Cayman Islands at the time would have said that they probably had already discovered them. In famous birthdays, born in 1960, Paul Hewson, otherwise known as Bono, the very modest rocker of U2, and Joshua Tree fame, of course. He was born in Dublin, in Ireland, on this day in 1960. Actress Maureen Lipman, well known, of course, for Wonderworks and Educating Rita. Maureen Lipman was born on this day in 1946. Happy birthday to those, and to everybody else who's having a birthday today. Alrighty then, moving on. I have mentioned on this show before how we often quote Shakespeare without knowing it. Shakespeare has come up with a lot of phrases and words he originally thought of that are now in the English language, and it got me to thinking, it really did, about the English language in general, because there are a lot of people all around the world who do listen to this podcast. English may in fact be their second language. They may even be using this podcast to help them learn English. Good luck with that. However, I thought that the English language does have some very strange sayings and idioms that really make no sense to people to whom English is a second language, so I thought we'd have a little look-see, a gander, a butcher's at English and idioms and their origins. We'll start with a famous one, straight from the horse's mouth, and that means getting information directly from the most reliable source, otherwise known as Facebook. Straight from the horse's mouth means, yes, getting the information directly from those in the know. This goes back to the 1900s when people buying an horse would determine the age by looking at its teeth, and that also leads to the expression to look a gift horse in the mouth, which of course means it's very disrespectful to inspect a present, something that is free, by looking at its age and looking at what it's worth, and therefore it is not considered very good etiquette. Letting the cat out of the bag. To let the cat out of the bag, another strange English idiom. It basically means to mistakenly reveal a secret, something like that, to reveal a secret by, blurting it out. This, would you believe, goes back to the 1700s. There was a common street fraud, a scam, which included, would you believe, replacing valuable pigs, what were for sale, with slightly less valuable, in people's opinion, cats. Yes, people would put cats in a bag and sell them on as pigs, and that means that when they opened the bag, a cat came out and not a pig, and that doesn't go very well with your eggs in the morning. A wolf in sheep's clothing, we all know what that means. When somebody is pretending to be something they are not. Usually, of course, to the detriment of others, so be careful, he's or she's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Obviously, a wolf dressed up as a sheep to disguise who they really are. And this one actually goes back to the Bible, comes from something called Matthew 7:15, and from the Bible we also get rise and shine, getting up early in the morning, obviously something that is beyond me. And finally, at least for now anyway, cost an arm and a leg. That cost an arm and a leg, meaning it's very expensive. Where does that come from? Well, the story goes that the phrase started way back in the 18th century and referred to portrait painting. Famous people like George Washington would have their portraits done without certain limbs showing. So for example, you get a portrait of George Washington or Churchill or somebody, and you'd maybe only see one arm, or you'd only see one out of the two legs, something like that, because to have all the limbs done cost extra money. So if you wanted two arms and two legs, it cost an arm and a leg, an extra arm and a leg. That's where that comes from. Alright, that is the strangeness and beauty of the English language. Time to move on to one of Chris's coincidence stories. If you haven't heard it before, I often share a story from history that illustrates the strangeness of coincidences. Now, according to research and statistics That's what I found on the internet. The odds of you being killed by a meteor are 1 in 1,600,000, so pretty unlikely. So imagine that a meteor, a comet, has been flying through space for more than 4.5 billion years. It hasn't hit a target. It comes to land and hits the home of a family with the last name of Comet. Yes, the Comet family, in what can only be described as a bizarre case of cosmic synchronicity. They were at home when a comet, a meteor, landed on their home in France. Thankfully, none of the comets were hurt, and they are now owners, of course, of their own very rare extraterrestrial rock. Now, the family are called Comet, of course, that's the whole story, but I suppose I may be twisting it. It was in France, they may have been called Comet, but however, the Comet family were hit by a comet. That's my strange coincidence story for today. Now then, what are people doing to keep you amused during the lockdown? Well, this is brilliant. Adults and children alike, I know some of you do, love Harry Potter. And a website called harrypotterathome.com, harrypotterathome.com, is every week revealing and airing somebody famous reading a chapter from the Harry Potter books. And it all started this last week on the 5th of May with the one and only Daniel Radcliffe, he of being the eponymous Harry Potter, of course. And he read the first chapter of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone online this last week. Other famous people will then continue reading a chapter each as it goes along, including, we are promised, Eddie Redmayne, Dakota Fanning, and David Beckham. That's to look forward to. You can find more information on harrypotterathome.com, or of course the very well known wizardingworld.com. Yes, wizardingworld.com are hosting that. Daniel Radcliffe reading chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Brilliant stuff. And talking of Daniel Radcliffe, time to move on to my binge-watching suggestion for today. And this is what is called an anthology comedy. Now, anthology means that basically one series is nothing to do and not related to the other. It's called Miracle Workers, came out last year. There are 2 series, and they are both completely different, but star the same actors. Both series are based on novels by the humorist Simon Rich. The first series is based on What in God's Name, and it follows Craig, who's a low-level angel in heaven, responsible for handling and answering prayers. And they get absolutely no help from God, played by Steve Buscemi, who's pretty much semi-retired. And the series carries on as they try to prevent the Earth's destruction. The second series is set during the Dark Ages, and is based on Simon Rich's short story, Revolution. And Daniel Radcliffe is in both of those. Both series are very, very funny in their own right, and both very different. Daniel Radcliffe, Steve Buscemi, Angela Kinsey, Chris Parnell, and many, many others star. Very, very funny. 2 series so far. Miracle Workers. Can be watched by the entire family. Good, clean, well-acted, beautifully acted comedy fun. Daniel Radcliffe, in my opinion, has really developed as an actor. He's taken some brave steps in some of the stuff he's done. And would you believe Daniel Radcliffe is 30? I don't know what that says about the rest of us, but there you are. Daniel Radcliffe and the TV series. It's called Miracle Workers. 2 series available to watch now. Enjoy. Now, one of the other things what I do on this little show of mine, the Lockdown Diaries with me, Chris Carl, is share a few drama games, because I do teach drama, or did, when we were allowed outside and to go places. And so I share the drama games that you can play at home with the family, with the children, or your lockdown crew. This game is called It's Mine, It's Yours, and the idea is you take a prop. It can be anything from around the house, let's say a stuffed animal or small toy, and you get 2 of you have to pretend they both really want it, or they both really want to get rid of it, and they've got to demonstrate different ways of taking away the object or giving it to the other person. And they've got to demonstrate that the object is one of the following. You can make up your own, but I'm going to give you suggestions. So you've got your stuffed toy. It's either a precious, valuable item worth a lot of money, or it's nasty, old and smelly and they really want to get rid of it, something they really don't want. It could be very heavy or very light or sharp or dangerous. It could be an object that is about to blow up and they've got to get rid of it. It could be a hot pan or a plate. It could be an injured little fluffy kitten or rabbit. So make up some little things like that they've got to demonstrate using the object you've given them. And our second quick drama game involves taste. You've all been having a taste of your own home cooking over the weeks. I don't know how I've survived. There's only so many ways you can cook potatoes. However, what they've got to do, you can write the objects down on a bit of paper, or they can come up with their own. Everybody's got to describe an item of food. It could be a fruit, it could be a vegetable, it could be chocolate. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be a dish or just an item of food. Perhaps it's their favourite, and each player has to take it in turn to describe what their food is. And they've got to describe it in such a way, its colour, its shape, its texture, its taste, in such a way that the other people's mouths start to water and they can guess what it is. They can't use the word, the name. They have to describe it in as many creative and imaginative ways ways they can. Those are your drama games for today. Now, one feature that I've had on this little show over the last 57 days or so is a pun from The Punisher. The Punisher. My mate Carlos White here on the Costa del Sol in a lovely place called Bernamagna is a big fan of puns, an aficionado of the ancient and revered art of puns, wordplay and all that kind of thing, one-liners and so on. And he shares a pun every time I do this show, and this is the one Carlos would like to share with you today. And it regards, of course, his experience in lockdown. And he tells me, I fell asleep in the chair this morning, and when I woke up, someone had put a tea bag in my mouth. I'm not happy. I hate being taken for a mug. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you so much, I think. And Carlos will be back on the next episode of the Lockdown Diaries, whenever that may be. Just a big shout out to all the Facebook pages that share this podcast. Very, very humbled and appreciative of that. Thank you so much. That's really good of you guys to share it. All the support I get, all the lovely comments from around the world. Still a long way to go, of course, in lockdown. Still a very serious matter. We here in Spain, in certain regions, are having the lockdown restrictions lifted ever so slightly. In Britain, everybody's been told to stay alert, just in case a coronavirus jumps out at you from behind a bush disguised as something. I don't know how that works, but nevertheless, we are staying very, very careful and cautious and trying to stay indoors as much as we can. Respect the 2-meter social distancing from each other. We're all wearing masks and stuff as much as we possibly can. Which reminds me, very strangely, just suddenly off the top of my head, there is a TV show, I believe, in America and the UK and other countries, a reality talent show called The Masked Singer. And it kind of got me to thinking that that is just one show. But actually, in the future, possibly all talent shows will be masked singers. Now, this show is available, of course, on many different platforms, including YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel. Twitter, of course, I've got a Twitter page and a Facebook page. All you've got to do is search for The Lockdown Diaries. Lockdown is all one word. You can also find me personally, Chris Carl, K-A-R-L-E, Chris Carl, on Twitter and Facebook. Many, many thanks again to everybody who shares this, who listens to it, and who gives all the nice comments and everything. Thank you so much. We've got to get through this. We've got to stay positive. We've got to keep sharing all those creative things that we're doing. If you're not doing anything creative and you just sat at home, it doesn't matter. You're getting through it. You're doing your bit. All we've got to do is stay positive, stay indoors, and beat this. I'll be back with another Lockdown Diaries with me, Chris Carl, hopefully very, very soon. Thank you so much for listening. Have an absolutely super awesome week. Thank you, and goodbye now.